Okay, apparently we are live. Ben, how's it going?
It's going well. It says we're live. This is our first attempt at doing a live broadcast together using
Yeah.
video. Very cool.
Yeah, so let's see what we got. We got to wait for
So
some people to If
now
you've
what we
tuned
think,
in, we're using a third-party service for this. We can't see you unless you type a comment. So type a comment.
yeah. And what we think is happening, at least, is that this should be on my Facebook page, my Ben Baran PhD page. It should be on our Indigo podcast Facebook page. It should be on my personal or professional YouTube channel, and it should be on our Indigo Together YouTube or Indigo Anchor YouTube channel as well. So I don't know if that's happening. We'll figure it out though, right?
I'm going to go log into some of these. Let's see.
Yeah, so I guess we could just check and see. If I go to Facebook, and yeah, it looks like, when I go in there, it says that let's see, it's loading up. My
Yeah,
computer's
so
probably like,
we are
oh my
live on
gosh,
the one.
sweet.
But obviously
Live.
nobody following us.
Yeah, we are. Yeah, I guess we are live. So cool. All right. Well, I'll exit out of that. All right. So yeah, so we're live. Should we what do you want to talk about?
Well,
Let's talk about
give them the spiel about what we're going to be trying to do.
Yeah. So what we are trying to do, what Chris and I are passionate about, and we are closely aligned in this way, is we are very interested in and passionate about human flourishing at work and beyond. And that's really what we founded our consulting firm upon. And it's really the overall umbrella for our podcast, the Indigo Podcast. We talk about all kinds of things related to human flourishing at work. So things related to organizational behavior and leadership and human resources and other aspects of management. But we also talk about things that are important outside of work as it pertains to human flourishing. So, for example, our episode that we released yesterday was all about somewhat of a moral case for reopening in the midst of COVID due to the socially ending of the pandemic, even though it is not medically ending. And so, we talk about the psychology of exhaustion in that episode, and just about the realistic path forward that we're seeing for organizations and for leaders. So, that's kind of what we're trying to do here. And with our video content, we're trying to let people interact with us in another way. We're trying to push our content out there in another way, and really have a more interactive forum too. So that's kind of what we're doing. And we've also been working hard over the past week making our personal offices a little bit better. So you have a more interesting background than I do, but we both do have good sound buffering. We spent time.
John Bland, we see you. Do you see the comments on your page at all, Ben?
No, where should I see them? Oh yeah, it says good stuff. Cool. We have the live comments. So very cool. Yeah. So we that's cool. Now then it comes up right there. Awesome.
So we're trying out this new software. John, how's the video and audio quality from where you are right now?
Yeah, that'd be good to know. Unless he was just scrolling through and dropped his good stuff and left. And if he does that, if that's true, oh, cool.
He gives us either an A-, 1A-, or A-1, or A-OK. John. Oh, Emma, my wife's on. So we got two people.
Two people.
John, where are you from?
So John's in Tennessee. John's my old boss at UNC Charlotte.
Yeah, look, Scott McCubbin.
Oh, and Scott, I had him as a student way back when at Northern Kentucky University, which is awesome. So John's in Tennessee.
Nice. I used to live in Nashville, John.
Yeah. And yeah. Beautiful place out there. Good stuff. Cool.
So we were just talking about, so we did a podcast yesterday of making a moral argument for opening the economy. And that podcast episode has done just exceedingly well.
Yeah. We got a lot of folks tuning into that one apparently. So that's kind of cool. And part of it was that we just saw a lot of kind of moralizing in the media and some pundits just saying, if anyone is attempting to reopen the economy, then they obviously just want everybody dead and they're idiots. And I don't think that's necessarily, scientifically backed, right? So, obviously, medically, we will see a surge in cases. That's going to happen. But people are psychologically exhausted, and there are other things to consider. And a lot of this does come down to individual risk and responsibility. So it was also cool on the podcast yesterday. We had
Hi, Alicia.
Hi, Alicia.
Thank you for tuning in.
Another cool thing that we did on the podcast yesterday was, a few minutes into it, we were like, we should call Chris's dad. So we called his dad.
Obviously, not a good point of judgment there.
No, actually, it was good because so Chris's dad actually is a medical doctor, so it was relevant, and he's been going around the country. He is failing in retirement, which means he's still working. And so he's been going around the country working in emergency room departments, helping with the COVID pandemic. So pretty cool. And he has had some neat things to share. I don't know what we'd get if we called up my dad. What do you think we'd get if we call up my dad and we just asked him random questions?
Well, it'd be hilarious, but that'd have to be like a episode of inebriation.
It'd be good. It would be. Sometime we're gonna have to play for our folks his voicemail. Hey, Mike husband. Captain husband.
What
Captain.
A guy.
That's
nice.
Right. So Mike and I served together way back on the mighty USS Preble, DDG 88, and have both continued our service in the reserves. So Mike's out in Texas, if I'm following him correctly. So good stuff there. But
right. So since we've got a few more people on, we just want to kind of go over our stuff. So we have this podcast called the Indigo Together, or the Indigo Podcast, and it's under our kind of, I guess you'd say, sub brand of Indigo Together, which it's not together if it's just us yakking in a microphone, right? So we're going to start doing some of these live video events. If you hear my phone going off, it's because people are giving feedback here. And which is great. Good to see you all. But so we have this podcast that we've actually it's exceeded our wildest expectations thus far and continues to grow. But we want to make this more of a dialogue that can be live. We want to record video content. We're going to do some corporate training type stuff that doesn't suck because most of that stuff is bad.
You mean some corporate training sucks?
I mean, as somebody who's been abused in the military by a lot of crazy training, yeah, it can really stink. But we're going to do some of that. But we wanted to provide a broader format and video content to address some of the things the topics that we find of interest.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And my background as a management professor, I spend a fair amount of time in my research and in my teaching on kind of the workplace aspects of human flourishing and so forth, and how you can make a great organization even better, and how you can harness the capabilities of your people. But there's a whole lot more to human flourishing than work. They're inextricably intertwined, but it's a big topic. So there's a lot that we can cover there. And one thing that Chris and we really try to do is we try to be very evidence-based, which means, looking at research, trying to find out what science tells us about different things, and interpreting that for the general public, for the general audience that we have. Because, the way that information is produced and disseminated in academic journals is oftentimes fairly inaccessible to most people. In a real way, oftentimes you have to pay to download it if you don't have a library subscription somewhere. The other thing is that it's oftentimes written for other academics. And so we like to try to decipher that and try to make it meaningful because there's a lot of good information out there.
Yeah, so I'm a little bit more blunt on that. Most of the business management books out there are crap. I mean, you've got some schmuck CEO who was successful, which is
Yeah.
great. But, if you read the Steve Jobs way, the Jack Welch way, there's not a whole lot of commonality. And you're not
Yeah.
Jack Welch. And actually, a lot of his stuff that he was lauded for as a management theory has been debunked as garbage. Yet he has a business school named after him. It's not a super competitive one, but he's got a Jack Welch business school,
Yeah.
probably for that reason. And so there's this idea of what we do. And in the military, I've seen this a lot. Hey, listen, you're a good officer if you do it the way I do. And then so you got a bunch of mini-me's in each command, right? And that's baloney too. But there is actual research and there is evidence-based practices which you can embrace and do that will actually help you. These are actual tools.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's a lot of what we're going to be doing.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. So, um, but yeah, and doing this in a live session, I think is fun. We have a podcast that we're recording tomorrow morning. Just a little preview of coming attractions. We have we're going to be doing some exploration into the wild world of virtual meetings, which I'm sure many of you have been thrust into, and so we'll look at the science behind some of that and how we can make those virtual meetings a little bit more effective and less terrible. And for doing that, we're going to have a special guest joining us to talk as well. So that'll be a lot of fun.
Yeah, so I guess we'll open it up. Do you guys have any questions or I don't know?
Are we able to see on any of the channels, maybe on your end, like
Yeah. So we got 4 at the Indigo Podcast Facebook tuned in and 2 from your Facebook. We don't. Oh,
Cool.
this is a piece. So Google Indigo Together YouTube and become a subscriber. That's where we're eventually going to shove all our different social media channels down into one for our live and video content.
Right. Yeah. And now what we don't have in this platform is a way to chat back to people, do we? We can just talk to them.
Yeah, no, we actually can. You can post a comment down there at the bottom.
I think you can. I think I can't. Yeah. So this is truly our first foray into doing this. We just figured some of this out today. So
like I just posted for you. So there you go.
Live and learn. That's right. Yeah.
So we got a couple of others. Feel free to chime in with a comment or say hello. Thus far, we've had John Bland, who's via Tennessee, and Scott McCubbin was one of your students.
Yeah.
Was he a good student?
He's a fantastic student. Seriously, he was good. Yeah, no, this was for if I remember correctly, this was for a managing organizational change course that I taught in the spring of 2012. If I remember that, it's very specific, but I think that's when I had him. And so that was a while ago. Goodness sakes, 8 years. So yeah, good stuff. But yeah.
All right. Well, if nobody has any comments or anything, I guess I don't know, Ben. We're going to record tomorrow at 7 a.m. with our special guest.
That's right. Well,
5 a.m. my time.
Yeah, 5 a.m. your time, 7 mine. Well, the other idea that we had, and maybe we'll do this once we, if we get a larger group on here, is cool to, get me some ideas around something interesting I could put in my background. That was one thing that we had talked about.
That's Greg Hyatt.
We were just, hey, cool.
Look
yeah.
Look at his profile pic. What a guy.
I know.
We
Yeah.
should just leave that up there. We'll get more subscribers. All right. John Bland says, I'll be interested in research on benefits of virtual meetings in addition to drawbacks. We likely will do some faculty department meetings via Zoom. I'm looking forward to some remote meetings. Well, first of all, anytime you can avoid meetings with faculty, that you're off to a good yeah, you're gonna derail right there. Wait a minute. Do you have more than 2 faculty people at this meeting?
Yeah. Ugh.
But actually, that's what tomorrow's episode is gonna be about, is about virtual meetings. We had, when everybody started working at home, we're like, well, do we do an episode on virtual meetings, or not?
Yeah.
And we just figured, I mean, I come out of an IT software development background, and I just thought everybody knew kind of how to do those. And and then we got several people say, hey, listen, I'm really Googling for some good content, and I can't find. I even went to over to PMI.org, had an article, and they had just a bunch of guesses as to what. There wasn't any evidence-based stuff. So we're actually going to be doing evidence-based stuff. Ben, tell them about Steven that sits on our academic.
Yeah. So John, who asked that question, he knows who Steven Rogelberg is because so John, just for context, he was the director of public relations at UNC Charlotte when I worked for him as the internal communications manager. So that was a long time ago. But during that time, so Steven, back then, so Steven Rogelberg is a professor in the Department of Psychology as well as in organizational science and in management at UNC Charlotte. And he's done a lot of research on workplace meetings. He wrote a book about it called The Surprising Science of Meetings. That was quite a hit. Came out beginning of this year. Has it only been 6 months? I think so. Or did it come out last year? Anyway, it's been out for a little while. It's a great book. It's kind of goes over the evidence behind how to make meetings better. And so we're going to be drawing upon some of that. And actually, the person we're going to be talking with tomorrow is Lee Williams, Dr. Lee Williams, she worked with Steven for the past 5 or 6 years on research related to meetings, and just recently finished up her PhD in organizational science at UNC Charlotte. So it'll be fun. Yeah,
right.
Mike.
So Michael Husband, do you know this guy?
Yeah, Mike. Well, I mentioned him earlier. So Mike and I served together back on the ship way back in the day.
I couldn't see him when he was small, but man, look at him throwing that weight around.
Just
great.
throwing it, just crossfitting it up. By the way, Mike, I'm wearing a Rogue shirt so that I'm in the hope that they'll send me some free stuff today. I don't think it'll happen, but I need a dip bar. Yeah, the pros and cons of Zoom meetings versus in person. Do we need to go back? I think that brings up an even bigger question of what kinds of things have organizations and people learned during these past 3 months that they could potentially use in the future, right? So, having to go virtual, having to not, be around each other, and perhaps it's highlighted some things that don't need to happen anymore. So yeah, we'll definitely be covering those types of ideas.
One of the things we're going to talk about that I think is pretty interesting is there tends to be a gap in organizations, right? So you have, some of the, for lack of a better term, line level workers, and they enter in and they're like, well, if I grin and bear it, I'll go from call center operator to CEO. I may have to, shift through a few companies, but make it. But there is a bit of a barrier there, and that barrier, I think, can be exasperated by going to all virtual, because it's hard for line level workers to get exposure to managers who can become their champions. Because maybe it's not just your manager, but somebody's like, I worked on that project, and that person was really amazing. And hey, Bill, we need this spot. Have we thought about talking to this person? And so some of that stuff is missing, and we'll go over all that kind of stuff in our episode. Not to spoil it all.
That is definitely a valid point. So yeah,
nice. So let's see, who else has joined us. We've got John's been saying. We got Emma, Scott, Alicia, Michael Husband, Greg Hyatt.
Did you pay Emma to join? Emma,
no, but she knows I'll just text her until she logs in.
Yeah, we didn't pay anybody else though. So yeah, it's good stuff. So
Yeah. Any other topics or questions? I mean, no obligation. We'll log off if the the dialogue isn't a hot potato. But yeah.
yeah, it's cool. So I don't know. Well, this is a fun first attempt, I think, at doing some video, right?
Yep, I think it's been great.
Yeah.
We'll do these semi regularly. Well, we'll do them at least once a week, but we'll probably, as there's pressing items that come up, we will address those through this format.
That's right. That's right. Thanks for joining, y'all.
Bye, everybody.
See ya.